the phonograph.
But this is what I don't understand. South Africa, you're coming from an independent Zimbabwe.
Yes.
That's made superstars out of everyone around. It's the bread basket of Africa.
Yes. Yeah,
at the time, there's a lot of hope around Zimbabwe and what it could be, what it's becoming. And it's an exciting place. But you're going to South Africa where it's during apartheid, right? And Mandela just got out.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fighting, and there's not much that's happening for the black person at the time. Why would you go to South Africa? Because that always baffles me. And a lot of broadcasters did that at the time.
Yeah.
Your Musi Kumalos. She went to South Africa, right?
Yeah, for a little while.
For a little while.
Yeah, and then she went to Ethiopia. She was based there.
Right. Yeah. And we saw a lot of South African, Zimbabwean broadcasters move to South Africa at a time when not...
So profound, it became a game of numbers. Zimbabwe, at the time, was doing good. It was on the right track. But we're still a very small society.
9 million maybe?
9 million,
10 million.
Yeah. Yeah, a little shy of 10 million at the time. And South Africa, although it was struggling in terms of social unrest and the fight to liberate black people, they used to call it Azania at that time,
right.
The liberation of Azania. It still had better numbers than Zimbabwe.
And it had a
better infrastructure, better international relations. Right. Remember, I'd done several trips to the UK and the States, and the influences and the style and the facilities that I saw there, I saw similar ones in South Africa. Then I thought, if I was to work, my idea was to work in South Africa for a little while and perhaps go into the UK. I did a few things in the UK and so on and so forth, but I thought that I would eventually go into the UK, then the UK go into the States and possibly become a black DJ on an American radio station.
I've always said this about South Africa, that if you've visited South Africa before, I've been privileged to go to Europe and that kind of thing. If you've been to South Africa, when you finally eventually go to Europe or the US or Australia or any other, nothing's gonna move you there.
Yes.
What's gonna move you there is the size at which things are done, but everything you're seeing, you've probably seen it before.
Yeah, true.
Everything you're experiencing, you've probably experienced it before in South Africa. That's how much
South Africa provides a window into the international market, really.
True.
Yeah. So that conduit was really important for me. So that's why I think I went into South Africa. Because in my mind, I thought, okay, this is progress. I've done Zimbabwe. At the time, I'd been voted the best DJ, best presenter. I'd culturally built a brand and an image with Coca-Cola on the beat, you know. I'd really become the young broadcasting superstar. So I thought, okay, I've set a certain level. Let me go and try a different territory. See how I will fare. And South Africa was my next stop.
So you get a show, you're doing Drive.
Yeah.
What was the name of your drive show?
Tich Mataz Drive Show.
The Tich Mataz Drive Show.
It started off as The Rush, I think we called it The Rush or something. And then eventually, because of the brand I started to create, it became the Tich Mataz Drive.
The Tich Mataz Drive Show.
Yeah.
South Africa gets its independence.
Yeah.
1994.
Yes.
And things are starting to change. There are a lot of replacement dynamics in play. A lot of places where black folks couldn't go, they can now go. A lot of opportunities they couldn't get, they are now able to get. In almost most companies, there's now a quota to make sure that there are black folks.
The Black Empowerment Drive.
And the media space is opening up to tell black stories that otherwise couldn't be told.
Yeah.
And something happens for you that's very key.
Yeah.
What is that?
I started getting gigs in mainland South Africa. Botswana now had been dissolved. It is now called the Northwest Province. And
Radio Bop is still Radio Bop?
Radio Bop is still Radio Bop. Politically, they're hoping to be incorporated into the broadcasting industry in South Africa and be given a license. But you see, the setup politically, it wasn't going to work. Because the leader of Botswana, Mangope, at the time, President Mangope, was seen as fraternizing with the white people. He was aiding and abetting.
So it was counterproductive.
Counterproductive to therefore allow for him to continue doing these things even in the new setup. So what they then did is when they got rid of Botswana, the whole system collapsed. Yeah, which was sad. And then a lot of us now we're starting to look elsewhere.
But you're still at the radio station?
I was still at the radio station, but I'd started doing a lot of work in Joburg. I'd go for commercials, I'd go for voiceovers, I'd go on training, how to sound epic on the radio station, and that kind of thing, you know what I mean? And because of that gift that God had given me, my brand started resonating with a lot of products and corporates in Johannesburg.
Right.
So I thought, shall I go for Metro, Radio Metro? I said to myself, why didn't I go for the juggler? I want to go and work at 5FM. Radio 5, which later on became 5FM, was the biggest radio station in South Africa.
Why was it the biggest radio station in South Africa? Positioning,
branding, names. Your Alex J's.
Alex J's, legend.
You know what I mean? Legend. So what I then did, I said, let me go see these people. We met at a function.
You were emceeing at the function.
I was emceeing at a function, and the people at the work or doing the gig, the people that I was doing the gig for, then told me of certain people from Radio 5 then who were amongst
any common names that you remember?
I think Brian Oxley was there. Cleone Cassidy, I think, was there for the function, and the Bossman was there. So after the gig, the Bossman comes to me and says, "Hey, what's your name?" I say, "My name is Tich Mataz." "Where are you from?" I say, "I'm from Radio Bop." I say, "Okay, you sound good, my name is Keith Lindsay. I'm from 5FM. I said, "Oh, that radio station." He says, "Yeah, we're the best radio station in the country." I said, "No, you're not. As long as Tich Mataz is not on the radio station, you're not the best." And I got the gig.
Oh, you got the gig? Get out of here, Tich. No.
True story.
There has to be a story.
True story.
So, wait. So you say that, and what happens next? What does he say?
He gave me his card.
Right.
A week later, I call him. I say, "Hey, Mr. Lindsay, how you doing?" He said, "I'm looking for you. When are you next in Joburg?" I said, "Well, maybe weekend." He says, "Come and see me." So I go. I see him. I go into Johannesburg for the weekend. He invites me for a drink.
You were still...
I was still at Bob.
It was not called...
Northwest Province.
Oh, Mafikeng.
Mafikeng.
That's where Mafikeng is.
Yeah, that's where Mafikeng is.
Oh, okay.
So
there.
Oh my God! Don't even, my brother. So Keith Lindsay has a drink with me. He tells me who they are, what they're about. He says to me, "Why don't you pop into the studios?" I get into the studio. Derek the Bandit used to do a lot of production for Alex J, and I do a tape, an audition tape. 2 weeks later, they call me, they say, "You got the gig."
Just like that?
Just like that. I'm still at Bop, but I could see that things within Botswana were dying down.
Who else was still at Bop around that time?
Well, most of the guys were still there. Because for a very long time there was interest of a media company in mainland Johannesburg that was interested in taking over Radio Bob, as it was, and then applying for a national license, and then becoming a competition for some of the big radio stations.
So you get the gig. How do you have this conversation with Tapelo Tipe?
Well, Tapelo, I had a very Tapelo Tipe is a good man. He's
really now a minister, by the way.
Yeah, he's a good man. And I thank him for everything that he did. Very fair, very loving, very protective of me. You know, he said to me, "Listen." I went and I told him I've been speaking to 5FM. They've offered me a job. He says, "You know what? That's the best move anyone can do right now. I give you my blessing. Go ahead, do what you got to do. Let's see how it works. If it doesn't work, call me back. Call me at any time, and you can come back." Luckily enough, when I got into Radio 5, just before it got rebranded to 5FM, I was well received.
This is a white radio station. It's important.
I was the first black voice on the white radio
another
station.
First.
Another first.
This is why, for me, the Ruzawi experience was key.
Speaks to...
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you were the first black student at Ruzawi,
yes.
and you also become the first black voice at Radio 5 that later became 5FM. But something key happens there, because as much as it's an exciting story for us to say that Tich Mataz, you were the first voice on Radio 5, it doesn't mean that it was also an exciting story for the listeners of Radio 5.
Boy, do I have stories for you?
Come on, that's why we're here, Tich.
5FM was something else. 5FM opened my mind to infinite possibilities. So it was a culture shock for a lot of listeners, as well as the marketplace itself. Young black boy who's fluent, can hold his own, and because I'm named Tich Mataz, a lot of people thought I was white.
Really?
Yeah. They then get surprised at live shows. Tich Mataz comes up on the microphone as a black dude. I remember I had a couple of friends. I think one was called Frederick Nielsen or something, who was really a close friend. He would call me when I was on air, we'd talk, etc. Then he saw me, and I was black.
It broke his heart.
It broke his heart. He cussed me out.
He cussed you out?
Yeah. Why are you black?
He had connected with you so much on the radio.
On the radio.
That he thought you were white.
I was white. But after a while, we became really good friends.
But is it true that for the greater part of your early time on 5FM, they wouldn't put up your picture on the program material?
Yes. Because they didn't know how the market would react. So my voice was out there, but my face wasn't. Then only after a while, they then recognize, okay. In fact, one of the things I remember having a chat with Keith, and Keith was telling me that, you know, what we want to do as 5FM is we want to retain a certain threshold of listeners, high-end listeners. So if blacks start to rise and they start earning real money, we want them to be part and parcel of our listenership. So that's where you'll come in, so that they can connect with you. You understand what I'm saying? So I started, for the longest time I did late night radio as well. I did, night radio, and then I started doing afternoon. And then things started happening.
When you started doing afternoon?
Yeah.
If it drops?
Kick it!
And it dropped?
And it dropped.
And you were kicking it left, right, and center?
It dropped.
So, this is 94, right?
Yeah.
When do you move to midday?
96.
96, 2 years later.
2 years later.
But at the time your life was already getting crazy.
I'll sort it, man. One thing that people really found interesting was the fact that, I'm a good DJ. I'm actually a nightclub DJ. That's where everything started. I mixed with SL 1200s, vinyls. I got to, Panasonic CDJs, CDs. Now people use laptops, the virtual DJ, Serato. I can do that as well. So people were amazed that this guy is on radio. Then I started doing functions, gigs, fly from one place to the other in the helicopter.
You come on, Tich. This is in the 90s?
This is in the 90s, dude.
You were so booked that you were flying from one place to the next with a helicopter.
Yeah.
And you were getting paid so much.
I was getting paid lots
that
of money.
You could actually charter a chopper.
Yes.
From one place
to go to one gig to another. I was one of the first non-performing sports stars to be signed on as a brand ambassador for Reebok. They wanted to test the black market.
This is 91.
This is 95.
95. Yeah. But Tich, before you move on to tell me all these amazing things, it's amazing that you mentioned sport, right? Because you found yourself on a Friday night show with Bra Fitz Dibego.
Yes.
Yeah. God rest his soul.
Yes.
And at a certain point with yes. And how in the world, Tich, did you find yourself in a sports show? You can barely watch a game. Tich, you can barely watch a game.
You never know. Maybe my next move, I'm going to be a sports star, dude.
How did you find yourself on Hosa Weekend?
I created a relationship with the founders of Urban Brew then. We really became good friends. And one of the things that was happening in South Africa is South Africa was really struggling to come together as a nation. But the thing that spoke to every South African was the sport. Remember, they just won the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup. Mm-hmm. Soccer was doing well. Cricket was doing well.
They were also going to host the African Nations Cup
African Nations Cup in 95.
95, right?
Yes, I was a team of people who were strategizing. They were looking at hosting the Olympic Games in South Africa. Mm-hmm. Before I started doing some work for the South African sporting fraternity there, with some big people, and we were trying to get Soccer World Cup, which eventually came in 2010 at that time. You know what I mean?
And one of the key people in your journey is Denny Jordan.
Yes, Denny Jordan liked me. Denny Jordan, as well as the owners of Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs, I was starting to interact with people at that level, the Mataongs and so on. And really, I started to understand the politics of the day, what they were trying to achieve. And Hosa Weekend was important to drive a certain narrative.
What is this narrative, Tich?
Love South Africa. The South African flag first. Had an opportunity to work with President Mandela. Had an opportunity to work
No, wait, Tich, wait. Bring me back to Hosa Weekend. The thought process. Because at the time, the national sport, or one of the sports that were being pushed when it was still apartheid South Africa, was rugby.
Yes.
Right? And the bringing on to the interest in soccer and, making it more national.
Yes. We were doing crazy things. We were creating stars out of sports people. Rugby, we were speaking to the James Smalls, who were huge at the time. Soccer, the Dr. Kumalos, you know what I mean? These were people who were gods, and I had an opportunity to work with these people.
So how did you get the gig to be on Hosa Weekend? Because you still haven't told me that.
My brother, the star.
Just take me through this, man. How did you get the gig to be on Hosa Weekend?
What's up? Hey, lighten up. Trust me, this works. All right? Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, fill up those lungs with cool, fresh air, and thank goodness it's Friday. Now, after that little exercise, don't you feel much better? Yo, Pops!
Well, if that little exercise made you feel good all over, then wait until you hear what November has in store for you.
Ooh, that's right. Now, I have a whole lot of goodies right here in my lucky packets. Let's see. Ooh, we have the Other Cycle Tour, which hits its finale on Sunday. And we preview the favorite Malcolm Lange. And...
So myself and Urban Brew, we started talking about a show that would change television on SABC. So we wanted to do a lifestyle show, but people were not ready for lifestyles yet because it was still a metamorphosis. People were only coming outside of their shells. People were starting to find themselves. South Africa was starting to create different and urban societies which had never been there before.
Defining that rainbow.
The Rainbow Nation.
The rainbow, yeah, they're defining that rainbow. So
absolutely.
There's a lot of expression
that
wasn't possible before.
That wasn't possible before. So we then realized the best way to do it is let's mix the style, the fashion, the socialization with sports. Let sport be the talking point. But as you speak to a sports personality, you also speak about their lives, their aspirations, where they're coming, where they're coming from, and where they're headed. And it became the most popular show on SABC.
And that, which year was this? When you started doing Hosa Weekend?
I started doing Hosa Weekend end of '94, going to '95.
End of '94, going to '95, and that even made your brand humongous.
Yeah.
Right? Because people were really connecting with everything. In your life, though, where were you in your life?
I was doing well. I was really doing well. For a moment there, I felt this is exactly what I want to do. Everything is going according to my plan. The sky is the limit. Like I mentioned earlier on, I was young and naive. I was not able to... Wisdom comes with exciting discoveries about human interaction, information that should remain yours, exposure, the politics, and importantly, decision-making. Some decisions are best left till the very end.
What do you mean, Tich? Marry this to your journey. Specific stories, if you can.
I was a foreigner doing great things in a foreign land. What did I expect? That everybody's going to be happy? Guy comes from Tanzania into Zimbabwe, and he starts getting all the gigs. Do you know what I mean? I mean, how would you react?
Well, I'm open-minded. I would want to interview him.
You know what I mean?
And ask how he's doing.
Everything that has happened in my life has happened for a reason.
Wait, Tich, you're not going to do that again. We're not allowing you to do that today. Yeah. Right? So, Hosa Weekend is happening, and the endorsement deals are coming. Yeah. Tich, you are making arguably more than any entertainer at the time, right? And you're meeting people you used to dream you could meet. You're going to the US, to the UK, and a lot of that is happening. What's urban South Africa morphing into, and what's your place in it?
Urban South Africa is starting to find its feet. Black people are starting to experience new places,
right?
A new lifestyle. Mm-hmm. They are starting to dream again. They are starting to embrace new possibilities. And with it, and I want to say this with the respect that it deserves. South Africa is an incredible place. It is, South Africa, as we mentioned, it's a melting pot of a lot of things. South Africa has got the ability for one to become the best that they can in whatever aspect. Because what they do is they realize and recognize talent. If you're good at something, you'll be embraced and you will be paid for it. I then, only at a later stage in my life, did I realize that I just had been a fortunate guy. God had placed me at a time when the South African, the new rainbow culture was beginning to generate, the kinetics, the energy, and black people were starting to receive opportunities like never before. What I didn't realize is I just needed to have understood what was happening around me,
So Black South Africa, in urban South Africa, what's your placement? Who are you in the framework of urban South Africa as they are finding themselves?
I am the guy who is showing others how it can be done. That's, I believe, yeah. Almost became like a guinea pig, and being the person that I am, I fear not, If something explodes, I won't run away. I'll run to it to say, hey, what's happened? What's going on here? That allowed for me to take some huge calculated risks.
I hope one of those calculated risks are starting Kulumani Communications.
Yes, I started Kulumani Communications. At the time, there was a lot of black empowerment, and a lot of companies were looking to do work with black enterprises. And I approached a white advertising agency.
What's the name of this agency?
It was called Spectrum or something. Elspeth was her name. I later on worked with her daughter. I came to her and I said, listen, you've got a fantastic product here, but it's not going to work. There are no black people. She said, what are you talking about? I said, listen, what I'd like to do, I want to work with you for a little while, but I want to buy your company. So we worked. And then when I joined the company, deals started coming. Then eventually I said, listen, Spectrum does not stand for anything. If you want to really make big money, right now, in this new rainbow nation, you need an African name, something that resonates with African people. So we then changed the company to Kulumani Communications. Then I eventually bought the company.
So you're one of the first, in terms of just where South Africa was headed. Yeah. I've often heard a lot of entertainers in South Africa, broadcasters, or even the people who are there in the advertising and communication space, say that you're one of the first people to actually, the template that people are using now for what broadcasters, entertainers can do, and the extent at which you can stretch this thing. You're one of the first to actually do that in the way you did it.
Yeah.
Right.
Who's one of your favorite broadcasters of all time?
Of all time?
Of all time.
It starts with what I grew up listening to, Radio Thobela, Max Mojapelo. He's a Hall of Famer. It then comes back to Grant Shakwan, who was on Metro. And then it comes to my era, Tich Mataz.
Tich, the Midas touch.
That man.
You know what? You need to tell what exactly about Tich.
Tich was fearless. Tich showed us what's possible with radio if you prepare. That's Tich. And then you come to Radio Bob, the Jolly Good Show. It was Bendy Kobe and Josh Manyosi. I mean, those guys, they are the DNA, or basically the recipe I'm using, the formula that I'm using with the best tea in the city. It's called fun radio. If it's not fun, why are we doing it?
Which were some of the major things or spaces you started to move into that were not common at the time for a broadcaster turned entrepreneur could venture into and start doing certain things?
I really opened myself up to different things. Advertising became a core business by virtue of the fact that I built a brand in terms of the Tich Mataz brand, and I also had Kulumani Communications. I even started going into corporate deals.
What kind of corporate deals?
I went into housing. I went into transportation. We were starting to, with Sasol and them, we're starting to talk into the energy sector. And these were places where black people weren't there. So the money came because of the Tich Mataz brand. But the money came from these other deals, which were big, which were not necessarily broadcasting. Broadcasting in South Africa makes you money. But I think God blessed me in that I could smell deals.
How much were you making at Five?
Big money.
It was really big money at the time.
I was making big money, dude. I was making big money. I was making big money at a very early age. I was a young man.
Plus the endorsement deals, plus the ads, the voiceovers.
The voiceovers.
How much do you think you were worth at your peak age in South Africa?
At 25 years in South Africa, I was already a millionaire.
In all currencies?
In all currencies.
In rands?
No, in greenback.
In greenback.
I remember one of the silly things I did as a young man. I bought so many cars. I shouldn't have. I should have put that money in other things. But I was young. I mean, I was 25.
You were buying just cars.
I was just buying cars, dude.
bro.
I was buying cars. I mean, I even imported cars from the States, you know what I mean?
Get out of here.
Yeah, man. I mean, I went to America, and for the first time, the Americans were starting to embrace 4x4s. They weren't there yet. I remember seeing a documentary on Shaquille O'Neal, and Shaquille O'Neal was saying, you know, these little cars, they're too small for me, man. I'm a big man. And it was, you know, and they pimped up a truck that became his day-to-day car, and then a Ford started looking into what they called off-road vehicles then. And I remember I imported one from the States, you know, in South Africa, and one of the first guys to be seen in a 4x4.
Get out of here.
Then vehicle endorsements came. I had vehicle endorsements.
Which vehicle endorsements were this?
Hyundai, then BMW.
Tell me about the BMW one, because it's a very interesting story about it.
But BMW was starting to bring in the 3 Series and the X5.
And that's a big brand in South Africa.
That was a huge brand in South Africa. So what I did is first they called me in. They just received the first 3 Series, and I was the first guy to drive a 3 Series.
This is the Gusheshe.
This is the Gusheshe. and
wait, you're one of the first people to drive the Gush?
Yeah, and then they called me in, and they said to me, "There's a totally new car, a totally new product. It's an off-road thing. They took us into, they brought one in,
the X5.
The X5, and I went and they showed me how it works. You know." Four-wheel drive,
the
you know,
works,
the works, and then we spoke, and I said, okay, listen, I've got cars, but if you want me to drive this thing, let's talk. And so we did a deal.
And it paid you handsomely.
Yeah.
I hope it's the money you used to start Mataz. You had a club on in Rosebank.
In Rosebank.
Now Rosebank is...
Rosebank was a white neighborhood.
Exactly.
Do I have stories for you?
Come on now.
Black guy is, you know, owning a place in Rosebank. A place. You know? with written Mataz connection, and they think, who's Mataz?
This was a club.
This was a club. And this was a club for the refined brothers and sisters, you know, your Miss South Africas, you know, your top ballers and players.
It was in a club in the night, in a restaurant by day.
Yes, restaurant by day, club at night.
So lounge restaurant.
Yes, it was like a lounge place, yeah.
Yeah, like a lounge place, but it would pop off at night.
Yeah.
So you were playing at your own club.
Yes.
Right.
And I made some good money.
But all of this is happening, right? You are on top of your game, right? You're an entrepreneur doing well. And South Africa has just embraced you on the highest level.
Yeah.
Even pop culture, right? You are a great figure in pop culture. You got stories for days on how you met some of these amazing
indeed.
pop stars. But
yes.
There's one story I need you to tell me.
Okay.
Did you ever meet Brenda? My brr.
Boy, can I tell you a story. Brenda was magic.
Mm-hmm.
There is no one like Brenda. And there never will be. Brenda had an energy. Brenda had a style. Brenda had a presence.
Come on now.
Brenda had the voice. At concerts, when Brenda came, she would get the mic, open up her valves before she hit the stage, and the place would go wild. I tell you how I met Brenda. I was very close, and still am, hopefully, to Chico Twala.
There we go.
Chico Twala was the Don.
Hey, tell me about Chico.
Chico was the guy with the studio, the sound, the money, the contacts, and the distribution system in South Africa. So if you wanted to be a superstar in the music game,
Holla at Chico.
holla at Chico.
But tell me about Chico as a man. You said
Good
you
man.
guys were pretty close.
We're very close. I mean, I could go to Chico's house anytime and come to my house. Chico was living in suburbia, building houses, buying cars, spending money when others were still asleep.
That's Chico.
That's Chico.
Chico was making that.
Oh,
hey
Chico.
man, dude produced Weekend special in the 80s, boss.
Do you know what I mean?
Expect?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
So Chico was that dude.
Yeah, Chico was that dude. You know, Chico then he understood how to bring artists together. He had
And also to merge the two worlds.
Yeah,
like that native South African sound that people were hearing in the township, but also bring
and
this
the urban groove.
Yeah, the urban groove,
yeah.
this pop sound.
You know what I mean?
The bounce.
So I used to hang out at Chico's place, and all the stars would come in.
Which neighborhood is this?
Santon.
Santon. You were staying in Santon.
Yes, staying in Santon, and so you know, Chico's place was like my place. I just rock up. Hey,
Tich Mataz.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I mean, we had lots of fun with Chico, and so I met Brenda at Chico's place. You know, because Chico was one of the first guys to build a studio in his house. So, you know, they'd come and they'd record, etc., and then we became really good friends. And so, Brenda and I were simply a telephone call away. Brenda would say, "Where I teach? Oh, happy." And I said, "Hey, where you at?" She'd come by the club, drink whatever she wants. It was good.
It was magic.
Yeah.
Who are some of your closest folks in the industry at the time?
I was really a friendly guy, and everybody was trying to keep going up. And remember, we were actually a small group of people. I mean, everybody knew everybody. You know?
Because the industry was very small.
Yeah, it was very small. The industry was very small, and we would work together at functions, at events, that kind of thing. So I've been good friends with many people from my era. Yeah.
What are some of the crazy stories from those days? some crazy superstar story.
See, kids are watching, so.
Come on, give me one, Tich. Give me one, or maybe two.
I can't.
No, come on, Tich.
You know when you see the espionage movies, when it says private and confidential, and you open up and some of the pages have been blacked out. No, it's some really interesting stories. I went at the time just before I came back into Zim, 98. The South African team had successfully made it to the World Cup in France.
France 98.
France 98. And Kulumani Communications had gone and tendered for the job to cover World Cup 98. And we won the contract.
Those are a lot of millions of rands.
Yeah. So I had my issues in 98, but I still had a contract in hand.
It's a great thing you just mentioned the issues, because March 98, there is every newspaper headline. It's news on television.
Tich had been kicked out. He's gone.
No. That's a polite way to say it. We deported this man. March 98,
Yeah.
you're at the summit of your career. Not even the summit. You at this point, you're about to transcend, bro.
Yeah.
You've already transcended
Yeah.
broadcasting. You've moved at a rapid pace that from 91 to 98, you've done what other people would do in decades.
Yeah.
Right? You'd already done it all. Like, what else was there to do? Tich, bring me back to that moment. What happened, Tich? Because I think there's every other version on what happened, but never your version. What happened, Tich?
Let me put it this way.
Start up the phonograph.